Good morning. This morning I'm going to speak on a piece that I've entitled Creativity, Simplicity, and Balance. I'm still reading this friend, this teacher of mine, and once again, as usual, I read a piece of stuff that it sounds casually interesting and suddenly hits me like a ton of bricks. Like, well, this is again, it's basically angles on things that are just utterly, they I never thought of them, and they strike me, and I think they're valuable. A little bit in the way of context for this piece I'm going to do today is the fellow I read and who I spend all this time with and consider a teacher. There's an individual who had at his feet throughout his life the path toward all those things that people think they want: fame and wealth and influence and power and the kind of life where people rush around after you and take care of you and buy your plane tickets and whatever it is that drive people towards these ambitions of theirs, these climbing types. They're typically regarded as male characteristics, although the egalitarianism that we arrived at lately has a lot of females with these same kind of corporate seeking power for what it's worth. This isn't a gender thing at all. But this particular fellow really rejected that. Although this was constantly it was almost a demand of his. He rejected it and preferred simplicity. That's what he's speaking about here, and this is what I've chose to address here. The other little piece of background is that because he was in a position to naturally move in the direction of all these kind of classical, overblown, self-grandiosing type ambitions, was that he was naturally surrounded by those type of people all the time. People who needed to be the center of the universe and needed to be the most powerful or the most rich, and so he's kind of that's the background to which he's trying to speak to and guide those about the more meaningful and more genuine way of being in the world, and attaining a status in life that is truly and genuinely fine and great and worthy of note, not just some kind of self-tacked-on acquisition of power or wealth. So in this context then, I'm reading, he says, the reason I like creativity is because it keeps me simple. And then goes on to say, some kinds of processes are a pain in the neck and very complicated. So I like my life to be simple. I need that balance. So this suddenly kind of opened up the skies for me. I could see something very clearly. Later on, which I'll get to, the final kind of pause, and he says, so do something meaningful. This is, kind of where it comes to. Do something meaningful. And so this whole idea of creativity is in the context of doing something meaningful. If you are trying to make myself a perfect person, or make myself a good person, or make myself someone that helps in this particular area, hunger or education, he's saying do something meaningful. As soon as that becomes the core context and definition of what makes our days, or your days, our days, then it inevitably or by compulsion puts us in the context of creativity. Because it's impossible to do something meaningful without the intense, passionate, kind of all-consuming, don't eat, don't sleep, collapse from trying type of creativity. Like the great artist, like the great musician, those that are really trying to create. And then he says some types of processes are, so in order to create, one has to kind of analyze what are my talents, what are my resources, how much time do I have, What is my circumstance? Who's for me? Who's against me? There's a ton of kind of analysis. Then there's the implementation. There's the unexpected roadblocks. The effort to be creative, as any artist can tell us, and any genuinely accomplished individual can tell us, creativity is a very demanding. But not only is it demanding, but here's the thing that caught my eye. He says some processes are a pain in the neck. They're very complicated. And I think any of us involved in meaningful pursuits know this. You're trying to make something happen, and you're holding like 10 things in tension with each other. You're trying to hold a string of things together to get the last one to click or to find where the last one goes. They're complicated, and then one can be a little off. Maybe computer programmers know this. You can have something a little off that's throwing off your entire application, and it's called troubleshooting. And he says some of these are very complicated. So when we are involved in creative effort, genuinely creative effort for meaningful things, it's inevitable. It isn't all like, like thumb to four fingers and on the knees and Om and life is peaceful and I'm Mr. Serene and I'm an enlightened guy. It isn't like that all the time. The creative process is maddening. It's a whole day's work, and I still didn't get it. And it's me snapping at someone who didn't do anything wrong, and then then say, oh, sorry, I'm in this thing and it's killing me. This is what he's talking about. Some processes are a pain in the neck and very complicated. So I like my life to be simple. I need that balance. This is the genius that caught my attention in this. Because creativity has processes that are complicated. When this gentleman and myself, or maybe you too, when you need a break, you don't need to go be like the guy in the slick suit in the club and whose every hair is in place. And then if you get back and you look on your phone and you saw one hair is out of place and you're shot for a week, rather you want to, I don't know, have a glass of water or a glass of whatever you like to drink, sit back, think of nothing, be nothing. Just have simple simplicity. That's where joy is, not in more ambition, more acquisition, more self-importance. He goes, so I like my life to be simple. I need that balance. He goes on to read, and this is fun for me. That's why I can't really understand people who criticize. They don't really understand the creative process. They have so much time on their hands and so much energy. They criticize, spewing out this nonsensical garble and superficial analysis. And then he gets to which I mentioned. Do something meaningful. If you really want to use your head, do something meaningful. So he equates this kind of fevered mental acuity, this kind of looking around, gazing around, looking at this leader, looking at that head of that company, looking at this cop or this mayor, and like criticizing. It's just like the busyness of mind. And he says, I don't really get people who, I can't really understand people who criticize. They have so much time on their hands, so much energy, but and here again, back to the idea, they don't understand the creative process. If you really want to use your head, do something meaningful. And if you're involved in something meaningful, this involves you in creativity. And if you're involved in creativity, you know, like any artist knows, like any of us who are trying to accomplish something in our life, that the creative process is complicated. He says, some of them are a pain in the neck and very complicated. They're hard. Even if you're baking an apple pie or a turkey for folks coming out to your house for a holiday, that's complicated. You don't have time to criticize. You're involved. You're using creative energy. And so when that's done, what he wants, and I think there's wisdom there. This is what I want, is simplicity. Then you will truly appreciate. If you really want to use your head, do something, make something meaningful, then you will truly appreciate simplicity in life. And you can't see the essence of stuff unless your life is somehow balanced. When it's all jumbled up, you're not going to find it. So yeah, I can look at Bill Gates, I can look at the cop down the street, I can look at the guy who's like jacked up the price of bagels. I can be full of millions of ideas, but I don't know what any of those guys did to do what they do, how they live what they live. What I should be involved in is something meaningful, involving me in the creative process. And then once I'm involved in the creative process, I'm so constantly involved in things that are quote unquote a pain in the neck and things that are complicated, that what I seek is simplicity. And then there's balance. This is a beautiful balance, because the complications of life are connected to something meaningful. That which is a pain in the neck in my life, okay, so what? Okay, it's a pain in the neck, so what? I'm involved in something meaningful, I'll solve it. It's worth it for me to solve it. I'm happy to solve it. I'm doing this on purpose. I'm doing something meaningful. And at the very same time, that predominant way of being in my life makes me love simplicity. And this is a sweet balance. And he says, you can't start to see the essence of stuff unless your life is balanced. So it isn't, and that's what I love about what I'm talking about today or read today, is it's balance that we're after. He's not just saying, work hard, do this, pray more, study the scripture, wake up early in the morning, jog, eat spirulina, whatever. He's not just saying do. He's saying do something meaningful. We will inevitably encounter that which is a pain in the neck, that which is complicated, and we will inevitably desire simplicity. It's the antidote. It's the relaxation. It's the peace. It's we may go out to 100 restaurants, and spend $180 for a single clam and some French guy walking through smiling at us. But there's also just the fresh bread that's already sitting on your counter in a certain way. What's more delicious? And a nice cup of coffee or whatever your pleasures are. Simplicity. Here's the end of it. So you want to understand and find God love. Find something, bring some balance in your life. In order to do that, you have to try to do something meaningful. Make something meaningful, create something meaningful. Otherwise, everything is jumbled up. You have only this cynicism, criticism, and all these jumbled thoughts in your head, and you're not going to find anything. Start with the basic things first. What he's calling for, what he's saying, allows us to be on the path for our self-realization, or to find God, or however we define this in our personal spiritual path. What he's saying is that it's the balance. It's neither the simplicity that is going to be the place where you, quote unquote, find God. It's neither the frenetic labor of trying to create something big or something good, or it's not that. It's the balance. It's the balance between the challenging, complicated world of creating something meaningful. The natural simplicity we seek to balance that out. Therein lies, it's at the balance, therein lies the secret to where God is revealed, to where my true self is revealed, to where peace is revealed. It's a beautiful balance. And it starts with just simply pursuing something meaningful. We are inevitably overcome, or if there's an onslaught of complication, we inevitably seek simplicity. And I truly urge us at the end, as I conclude, that simplicity is the antidote. Not more fame, more drinks, more dance clubs, more companies to buy, more yachts to own. No, simplicity is the balance for the complications that are involved in doing something meaningful. And in that balance is the vision of the everlasting God, of the infinite truth, of what I can become that has eternal value. Thanks a lot. Talk soon.